Welcome to A Bevy of Bloods. My name is Chris, and this week we have a particularly special one. We are here with the Squinters, the GWS Podcast, over there, our little brothers in the West. So fluff up your tail feathers and enjoy what is going to be a little bit of banter with our mates in the West.
Pretty good midfield, forwards can play, backs got people talking, they talking.
Welcome to A Bevy of Bloods. I'm here with Ragnar from the Squinters, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, good, man. How are you?
Mate, tell me about yourselves, the Squinters, and your affiliation with GWS and all the love that goes that way.
Yeah, so we're a Giants fans podcast. Never surrender, never surrender by the Squinters. And yeah, we're sort of based all over the place. I'm down in Tassie, and we've got a Canberrian and also a fella in Sydney. And yeah, we sort of started up. I think I'm sort of a late comer, but the other guys sort of had the podcast going. I was late to the party, but I was sort of the only person emailing them, and sort of got an invite by default. So here I am. I'm the resident musician. I write the parodies for our podcast, and it's all been a bit of fun.
That's awesome, mate. So at the intro there, you would have heard one of your songs.
Yeah.
Tell me, like you said, you've got about 7 of them out there, and there's still plenty to come.
Yeah. So I've written a parody for Toby Green, but yeah, so that one's to the tune of "Wicked Game," and it's about and it's about Callan Ward. So it's a bit of almost a bit of a tearjerker, he said.
All right. Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. You get emotional, especially with guys like Callan Ward who've been around for so long and integral to the team and everything that goes up with the Giants, mate. I'm going to kick off by asking you a couple of questions. The Battle of the Bridge, maybe it's a bit different with yourself being from Tassie in particular, but the Battle of the Bridge moniker that they give to the game against GWS in Sydney, like, what do you think about that?
I guess it's just a geographical place. They can sort of describe us being west and you guys being east. I'm not sure if it's 100% fits what the rivalry's about, but I guess being a fairly new rivalry, it'll get established over time. Yeah, I guess with us, we've got a lot of supporters in Canberra as well as in Western Sydney, just as you guys have a lot of supporters in Melbourne as well as in Sydney. So, yeah, no, it's a fantastic rivalry, and both teams always are up for the game. We've played in some massive games over the years, finals, and really brought the spotlight. Final. Yeah, really brought the spotlight to Sydney, which is what the AFL is looking for. So, yeah, it's awesome.
No, awesome, mate. Like, yeah. So, really, I hate the idea of the Battle of the Bridge because it's ultimately done by someone in Victoria who just looks at Harbour Bridge and assumes it. But I think it was meant to be about the Anzac Bridge, but anyone outside of Sydney wouldn't know what that is. So. Anyway, but the Battle of Sydney, the Sydney Derby, I prefer. The battle for Hugh Jackman's soul is another option we might have out there as the most famous Sydney cider. I don't know. We'll take one of them. Mate, I was gonna so the first question is do you, and GWS fans generally, do you really get up for the Sydney games? Like, do you guys really look forward to the game, and do you kind of put a bit of a circle around that round to just hope, like, look, the older brothers were playing them, we hope we smash them, that kind of vibe? Or is it that the game comes along and it's just like another game, but then there's an extra bit of energy that goes along?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we obviously play you guys twice a year at least, sometimes 3 times a year if we meet in finals. But I think the turning point was sort of around the 2016, 2017 era, and it got really physical. And bodies were crashing everywhere, and we sort of, it's kind of where the Giants announce themselves as not just the younger brother anymore. They've grown up, and there's some big boys out there. So Sort of
good shout. 'Cause you won 3 in a row around that period, and that was when you really cemented yourselves as a proper threat at that point. So that's bang on.
Yeah, but
I know that. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, for the rivalry, I mean, we've got the Swans, obviously big rivals. We've got Richmond as well, meeting in a few finals, and also obviously the Bulldogs.
The Doggies.
We just really don't like them, as I guess you guys don't either.
No, we've got good reasons for it, and so do you. There was a period there, and even till now, like the games between yourselves and the Doggies are pretty fun to watch because they get physical, they get a little bit dirty. Yeah. It's fun. But even your socials, even the Greater Western Sydney Giants socials are like on point, especially when they play against the Swans. When anything related to the Swans comes up, you guys go a little bit harder. Like, for instance, today they've got an article that, you normally the article is like, GWS versus Sydney Swans. Today they released South Melbourne Swans versus Greater Western Sydney. Right? It's just that nice subtle little dig at at the older brother. Be like, what a bit of this. So I appreciate it. I think it's kind of fun, mate. I like the whole vibe of it all.
Yeah, our media managers and our social media team are probably best in the business, I'd say, and it's bringing a lot of eyeballs to the Giants. I think the fella's name who does a lot of that is Jacob Gaynor. And he does a lot of memes, and it's the younger generation just absolutely froth on it. So, he's good quality.
Oh, that's awesome, mate. I love it. I agree with you. I reckon the Giants have the best socials crew in the game. There's no doubt about it. I reckon they're well ahead of everyone. Well, let's get stuck into the team. We'll talk a bit more banter later down the track, but we're actually interested about the team and what you guys are all about. So tell me about the Giants. You guys are doing really well. I think it's 7 in a row, if that's off the top of my head. That's about right. Yeah, and tell me about the team as it stands at the moment and the list and everything there.
So the current year, I mean, this year was seen by many in the industry as a bit of a rebuilding year, and I still see it personally as that. If we win, we win. If we lose, we lose. For me, it's just about getting games into the younger players. And most games this year, we've had 7, 8, 9 players under 50 games played. Players like Jack Buckley, Connor Iden, they're still under 50 games. And Finn Callahan and Xavier O'Halloran and all these younger fellas that really bought into what Adam Kingsley's done. It's taken us a little while to gel and to get to the point we're at now, understanding the new system, because Leon Cameron was a very contested game style. I guess taking what the Swans used to do as well, and really harping on the clearances and contested ball, but we've completely gone the opposite way now. We barely ever win the clearances anymore. So I think it's just it's breathed a whole breath of fresh air into the team, and I think it also makes the most of the talent that's on our list as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, part of that I can only guess. You've touched on Adam Kingsley and the move there. Also, the choice of Green for captain that came with a little bit of questions about it, whether how good of an idea that was, and it's actually turned out to be an amazing idea. Not only he's always done it on the field, that's never been a question. He's always managed to kind of also raise people's eyebrows when he does whatever he does around people, whether it's kicking people, poking people in the eye, whatever he does. But it seems like he's just lifted, and the team around him lift when he does. Is that your gauge on it? That's definitely the gauge from this side.
Absolutely. Like, the players can't speak highly enough of the guy. Apparently, I haven't seen him train or anything like that, but apparently his training standards are just absolutely through the roof. He leaves everything out there. He has white line fever. Hasn't been reported in 2 years now. So that's a good start, and
that's a great start. Yeah,
I think since he's been captain, because he was co-captain last year, since he's been a captain, he hasn't been suspended or reported or any of that. So I think he's really turned the corner. he still gets a bloody hard time from the umpires, harshly treated. I guess the same could be said about one of your greats who's just retired, Lance Franklin. It's just the big players that game changers that they seem to get a bit more harshly treated than others.
Yeah, mate, don't tell anyone outside of Sydney that, because they all think that Toby Green gets away with stuff, which is ridiculous. He doesn't. And Buddy as well. They're all like, "Oh, Buddy gets away with this." Like, he absolutely doesn't. So yeah, good shout. Like, it's a Sydney thing that we're aware of, I think, between us as well. Mate, your list at the moment, a few names, if you don't mind, I'm going to throw out there.
Yeah.
Look, there's got to be some quiet achievers out there that and the fans for the Swannies who might listen to this might not know them. So we've got guys like Daniels, Lloyd, O'Halloran, Ash, Peatling, Bedford. Which of these quiet achievers are you particularly happy about and can see that should be given a bit more love by the outside world?
Well, a lot of them. Brent Daniels, for instance, he's now 24, but he's played minimal games because he's had a lot of injuries. He pretty much used to do his hamstring maybe twice a year, and he's an amazing player. Everyone's sort of heard of Bedford coming across from Melbourne, and the impact that he's had has just been incredible. He doesn't get a lot of possessions, but he's just that pressure game. Jack Buckley, who sort of covered for Sammy Taylor last year, at the start of this year, when Sam Taylor was out for 7 weeks. He sort of took over that role, and he's only played 36 games as well. Finn Callahan, he's going to be an absolute star of the future, sort of a smooth mover like a Josh Kelly, pretty much 2.0. He's only 20 years of age. Then you got, there's quite a list, and there's we've got a really young VFL side as well. So a really good young core coming through together. Yeah.
And I know you've gotten Ty Canelli over there now, who's walked over from the Swans to help you out with your younger boys, who's done a pretty good job on our side, if you don't mind me saying, with guys in particular like Errol Gordon and Braden Campbell.
Yep.
So you've got good hands over there kind of helping out with some of these younger kids and trying to get them all developed. So you've signed Harry Himmelberg out for another 5 years. That came out this week, a couple of days ago.
Yep.
You know that Sydney was trying to get in front of him. As it turns out, he wasn't going anywhere. Tell me about Harry. What does that mean for the team going forward? And what other players would you look to hook up and sign long-term for your list to look healthy?
For me, Harry Himmelberg's sort of taken over that Nick Haynes role, the intercepting half-back flanker. But where Harry probably isn't as strong one-on-one as Nick Haynes is in defense. Harry Himmelberg's got a beautiful kick. He's probably one of the best kicks in our team. I can almost see him playing sort of the role of your Blakey, Nick Blakey.
Oh, yeah.
That sort of role. He probably doesn't have Nick Blakey's pace, but he can make up for that in the overhead marking. He signed quite a long-term deal. Throughout the season, I thought he was going to leave us, but it's kudos to the Giants staff and the players and the brand that they've sort of rolled out this year. Harry's obviously excited about what the future holds. What that means for Nick Haynes, I'm not sure. Nick Haynes plays his 200th game this weekend, and he started sub last week, but they're actually starting him on the field this week. So whether they play him in the back lines or across the wing, there's rumours that Nick Haynes could be heading off to Hawthorn at the end of the year. So whether that eventuates and Harry Himmelberg just takes over that role across half-back, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But that's sort of my analysis.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. Good vision in there. Look, one thing, and I will caveat this with saying that I am actually a southwestern Sydney boy. So On the quiet, if GWS existed when I was 12 years old, when I started playing footy, I think when I was 10, I think when I started playing footy out there, only because I wanted to play rugby league, but I'm South American. My grandma wouldn't let me. Yeah. So I had to play soccer, but I didn't want to play soccer. So I picked AFL because it was in the middle. And that's the only reason why many of us were playing AFL out there in Southwest, Greater Western Sydney, was because we didn't want to play league and we didn't want to play soccer. So it's a really weird approach to get there. So I'm a little bit soft with the GWS Giants, a bit softer than a lot of other Sydney fans. So I was going to list this question out to you. The VFL just effectively just keeps ruining your list, ruining your team by taking great players, Jeremy Cameron, Boyd, Lobb, Jack Steele, Bruce, Will Hoskin-Elliott, et cetera, et cetera. That keeps happening. Is this a noted thing within the club? And are you building the club in such a way that it's protecting that? Or things like signing Harry Himmelberg, who's been playing for the Giants since he was 14 or so from Wagga. Is that the mentality, just to grow players from their own backyard now?
Yeah, I think if you ask the Giants players, they're a very strong unit, and they are like a big family. A lot of the players that have left, you've mentioned Boyd, Lobb, Jack Steele, Bruce, Hoskin-Elliott, they weren't our number one picked for that position. We actually let them go. The one that really hurt us, obviously, was Jeremy Cameron, absolute superstar. I think he'd won every one of our goal kicking since since our inception, and I think that's the one that really hurt us. I mean, you can also throw in Dylan Shield. You can also throw in Taylor Adams. Absolute stars of the competition, especially Taylor Adams. I really rate him. But for what we get in return, I think that's what it's all about for the Giants. We've managed to get good draft picks back from those players. A lot of them, a lot of the top rated players, we actually got 2 draft picks back from them. And yeah, we've sort of managed to rejuvenate our list, much like the Swans do as well. I mean, you guys do a lot more trading than we do, but we mainly just go through the draft. Yeah, so that's sort of how I see it. We haven't necessarily lost the players that we didn't want to lose, but we have lost players, and that was always going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels like when your players come of age, like a Taranto and a Hopper example, that a well-established team goes ahead and just pinches them, where it would just be, if you keep them, you have like just a really solid infield, and we know how Taranto's season's going is going very well. So with the loss of Cameron, the influx of young talent has come in. So Cadman, your Hogan, Riccardi, have they kind of collectively solved the issue, or is there still a big glaring hole at the front side?
They haven't necessarily solved the issue. Hogan's fitness has solved part of the issue because he's played a lot more games this year than previously. He's always injured, but he's played quite a few games over the last 2 years, I'd say. Cadman, he's going to take a long time. Like, his first year of playing as a forward was in his draft year, and right. Before that, he actually played as a wingman in the stateside, but then he had a big growth spurt. So he still hasn't had a proper preseason in the gym. I'd give him 2 or 3 years, and he's going to be an absolute athlete. Probably in the same sort of mold as a Jeremy Cameron. And Riccardi, I'm still a bit cold on. I'm not really sold on what he can provide, but yeah, the only sort of hole that I see in our list at the moment is a ruck forward, a player, and I suggested on our last podcast, a player, someone like Mabior Chol from Gold Coast, who isn't getting a game. He's playing in the VFL. He's still got 2 years to run in his contract. He probably has a strong link with Adam Kingsley, being from Richmond, and a player like him who can chop out Big Briggsy in the ruck would benefit really a lot from. So.
We've got ourselves a couple of those, and they're becoming invaluable at this point. So it's a good shout out. We've got a Marty and McLean that we've used pretty significantly this year, especially with our rucks being injured or out of form.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good shout. Like, it's definitely something that's you don't necessarily need two dominant rucks, as Melbourne's showing us. You don't need to spend that much money, but you do need someone to help chop out.
Yeah, I mean the guy that's sort of playing that role for us at the moment is Lockie Keefe, and he's sort of 33 years old. He's still a really honest player. He's never going to be a star, but he plays his role, and all he has to do is compete and bring the ball to ground in the forward line. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a big difference these days. Get it on the ground and then get that second touch to it. That's where the game is kind of up. So look, let's get stuck into what happened in the last game. It's tough for me to talk about considering the way it went, but round 7, the Giants get up by 1 point. Of course, it was Toby Green to kick it. Found himself about 2 meters worth of space, and that's all Toby Green needs when the game is on the line. Yeah, so since then, a couple of changes, and they're not going out the Swans' way, let me say that much. So you've got Tom Green is actually coming in. Hogan is in. Matt Flynn looks to be in, or has been in the last since then. O'Halloran has been in. And for the Swannies, we miss out, of course, on Buddy. Laddams is out since that game. Stevens is out since that game, although he's been effectively pushed out by some other players. And Francis is in because Rampy is out. So it definitely looks a bit weaker for the Swannies. It looks a bit stronger what it looks on paper, especially with Tom Green coming in at the Giants. How do you see this game going? Do you like predictions, or just the way that the style of game? What kind of game do you look at playing now with those players coming in?
Well, I think what happens is traditionally over the last few years, Giants normally win at the SCG, and you guys normally beat us at home. So it's kind of like the away team sort of wins. Tommy Green is a massive in for us. He's been out for 3 weeks with a hamstring. Jesse Hogan is also a huge in for us. He's missed the last few games with a quad injury or just tightness. 2 big ins for us. Cadman's dropped back, and someone else. So, I mean, what the Giants are really worried about would be Luke Parker. He always seems to turn up for you guys. He's probably won 6 best on grounds between the two teams.
The most of any player by far, I think it was.
Yeah. So, and Errol Goulden's having a massive year. So whether the Giants send Callan Ward to him, because he did a great job on Bontempelli last week after quarter time. It's going to be a fascinating game. I think it's going to be another close game. The Giants have played in a lot of close games this year. It's going to be a great game Saturday night.
Yeah, mate, it's going to be pretty fun. Like we're keeping hot and cold, and lately we've kind of been warm, and we go in these little streaks basically at the moment. So the Swans either keep it together, they keep a good amount of pressure and whatever, and then they kind of haven't done so well. And it's part of that's been listed with injuries in certain places, and losing Rampy in the back line is. Yeah, definitely part of that. So that's not going to be fun at all. But look, let me get into the next bit, which is moving to Canberra. Is this something on the list for GWS fans, or is it just something you hate hearing?
We actually covered this on our last podcast. One of the listeners, I think, is a Canberra supporter, Giant supporter from Canberra. And we did discuss a lot of topics about Canberra and where they see the game going, whether 3 games is enough for them, whether we need to be based just in Sydney, and whether Canberra need to have their own team. We all sort of agreed that 3 games is probably a good amount. Considering the support we have up there. The patrons aren't necessarily lined up to get through the gates in Western Sydney. I think the way I sort of surmised it on our podcast was it helps the Giants in a way that, yes, we don't have a complete home ground, which doesn't give us full advantage, but it helps us play away. And I think last week we broke the AFL record of winning nine games in 9 different locations throughout the year.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps us. And Kingsley says it after every away game that the boys love travelling together. They're like a big family. So that would be the same as when we go up to Canberra.
Yeah, no, that's a really good shout. It's a really interesting observation. Like, let's look at some of the teams that play almost exclusively out of the MCG, right? Look at Collingwood, Carlton, Richmond. These teams that, they play away games at their home venue and they make a big deal out of it. It's like, travel every now and then. Like, I think Mundy's done like some astronomical number of trips around the earth. The amount of times he's had to fly over, GWS and Sydney and Brisbane and Gold Coast, the amount of traveling all these teams have to do. And if you can't win at the MCG, we all know that you can't win a final. So if you get yourself a solid stats winning away, it goes a long way. You touched on Kingsley. What's his impact on the team been? You've touched on him a couple of times and the structure of the game that he's played, but yeah, just generally, how do you think he's faring, and has it been the right pick for GWS? I mean, the numbers say themselves, but what's your vision on it all?
Yeah, I think Kingsley's been massive for the Giants. They, as I've stated, they've sort of completely transitioned their game. They've turned it around 180, and I was sort of calling for that 2 or 3 years ago to make the Giants, because we're not in a traditional footy state, to make it more exciting and more appealing to the non-traditional AFL watchers. And that's to create a real fast attacking turnover style game where we get them on the rebound. And that's really what he's brought. He's brought a couple of assistants across, which he worked with closely elsewhere. And he's sort of a real student of the craft of coaching. He's done a massive apprenticeship. I think it was something like 17 years across different teams. He's gone and spent time overseas looking at the way different sports operate, and he seems like a real genuine great bloke, and a real father figure to a lot of younger players. I feel.
That's really nice. We could say a lot about Horse as well in that state, in the way that he develops players and builds them up like one of his own kids. Look, Kingsley is a bit of a monster. Like, he is a big unit. He's a scary looking man. He definitely does more weights than most of the guys in the team. A lot of carbs, mate. Horse versus Kingsley. Who wins that fight? Go.
Have you seen Kingsley's arms?
Yeah, he's a bit of a beast. Yeah. Have you seen Horse's head? There,
yeah, I'd say Kingsley in an arm wrestle.
Yeah,
but in maybe like WWE, I'm gonna back Horse.
Horse just because of that old school forward mentality.
Yeah.
But Kingsley in pure strength, you reckon?
Absolutely, and Horse would have a bit of height on him as well, a bit of a reach advantage.
Yeah. And Kingsley could probably hit him 3 times in the head before Horse realised. So that's one of the other benefits we've got. The chin on that bloke. Mate, that's awesome.
Maybe if we have a draw, like that can be the decider of the game.
Yeah. We've always suggested 2-man sack race, but what you're saying is that the coaches get out there and just battle it out, just punch on.
You can't leave the goal square. Like, whoever gets thrown out of the goal square loses. It's
like the most epic version of sumo wrestling you've ever seen in your life.
Imagine that.
That's really fun. That's really funny. Mate, let me touch on one more thing before I let you go. And thank you so much for joining in. It's been lots of fun. Buddy Franklin, we know about the story. He was going to go GWS before the Swans did the what in quotations, the dirty, and then took him over to Sydney. He's now retired. This week, ironically, is the first week that he's not going to play for the rest of his life. Do you want to say anything about him? And I'll give you that opportunity to say whatever.
First of all, I'll say about the deal that you guys got done. Buddy leaving. Obviously, everyone expected him to go to the Giants, except for maybe like 5 people in behind closed doors. and the AFL were really disappointed that he went to the Swans and hence took Kohler off us. So he sort of had a big impact on the Sydney market for both teams. And then in regards to that whole situation panning out, like it sort of allowed us to go and get Shane Mumford and Heath Shaw. And I mean, Mumford has been massive, especially for the Giants. He's still a coach there. And he's sort of part of the fabric of the club now. And as good as it would have been to have Buddy over there, we sort of got Big Sausage, and he's come across and made him into one of our own. But Buddy Franklin, obviously a legend of the game. I don't think it will be probably less than 5 years, and he'll be announced as an official AFL legend. He's been huge for the market in Sydney, and he's just a giant of the game. The scenes when he kicked his 1,000th goal at the SCG was just magic, and really shone the spotlight on the Sydney area. And I think he leaves a massive legacy on the whole game, and not just for the Swans or the Hawks, but all the Indigenous players as well. He's been huge, and I mean he's going to be missed. There was talks only last week that there were people trying to get him to go around again, and I was sort of on the fence. Like, you don't really want to be limping around there when you're 37, 38 years old, but I think now's the right time to go out, and huge player, and awesome for the game.
No, mate, that's really good words, and I appreciate all that, and a bit of insight. And of course, Heath Shaw is no slouch either. He was just an amazing character, full stop, mate, on top of everything else. Yeah, like the brother of his brother over there, the Swannies, and him just being probably the funniest person with a microphone on him that played. So
the Rat Pack,
an absolute champion. Yeah. Well, mate, Ragnar, I really appreciate you getting in touch with us. I got in touch with you guys. I really appreciate you coming on. Do you want to give the listeners out there a bit of a shout of how to find you and what you do?
Yeah, if anyone out there, Swanee supporters or anyone else listening, mutual listeners, if you want to hear any of my crazy parody songs, you can go to Never Surrender by the Squinters. We're on Spotify or other podcast platforms, and we talk a bit of smack, have a bit of a laugh, bit of a joke. We don't take ourselves too seriously, and thanks for having me on, and all the best for Saturday night.
Beauty. We'll see you Saturday night. So thank you all the listeners for listening in. You've been listening to A Bevy of Bloods with Ragnar from GWS No Surrender podcast, The Squinters. We'll see you guys at the Homebush Olympic Park on Saturday. Up the Bloods, Can the Swannies.